welcome to another episode of the Nick Solomon Show, the Sports Chatter Podcast. It's coming to you guys a little bit late. Last week was a little bit of a busier week for me, so I didn't have a chance to push out my normal timeline. So this week, I'm going to give you guys a real special. I'm going to get two for the price of one. There really isn't a price. I'm just going to send out two podcasts this week, and we'll be all caught up. But not to get ahead of ourselves, just to get right into episode 3 here. So the MLB World Series just ended just a couple weeks ago. The Texas Rangers won 4-1 over the Arizona Diamondbacks. This is the first in the Rangers franchise history of getting home a World Series Cup. So congratulations to the Rangers. The last they did, however, in their history, get appear in two other times, in 2010 and 2011. That 2011 World Series, going into it, you wouldn't think that I would have gone to the distance just on how stacked their opponent, the St. Louis Cardinals, were, with Molina and Albert Pujols on that Cardinals team. It was really stacked, and that World Series went down to the wire to Game 7. And the Cardinals ended up winning 4-3. But congratulations to the Texas Rangers for winning the first ever in their franchise history. Now, I guess if you're being a little bit technical, before they were the Texas Rangers, they used to be called a team called the Washington Senators way back in the day. The franchise ended up moving over from Washington over to Arlington, Texas, where the current team resides now, and that's where they switched their name to what we know them now as the Texas Rangers. If you include their whole entire team history, including their time in Washington, they won a title way back in the 20s, because I'm sure all of us here remember that. But in their totality, I guess you can say that they've won now 2 titles, and they have been to the World Series. This one, 10-11, and then they went 2 other times after they won their first one. So if I'm doing my math right, they've won 2 out of 6 times. But anyway, congratulations to the Texas Rangers. For those of you who thought that from my previous 2 episodes that we would just talk about football and basketball, you were wrong. I told you at the onset in the pilot episode that we were going to talk about all sports here. It just took a while for baseball to get its turn. Speaking of that, Shohei Ohtani, if I can get his name right. He is probably the best free agent baseball player to ever come available. Probably the best since A-Rod was. Now, A-Rod in the 2000s was about 24 years old when he became a free agent, which is super rare, especially one of his caliber, who had already came off of a dominant winning season the year before for Seattle. And he decided to make his big money. And the Rangers ended up signing him at whoever knows what that price tag was. But A-Rod was probably the last best free agent to come available. Maybe one could say, if you're talking about a little bit more recent history, maybe Albert Pujols when he became available. Because he ended up winning, another title after he was traded to St. Louis. But, I mean, when A-Rod graced the free agent scale, he was about as top of this game as anyone could. And he was 24 years old. Shohei Ohtani's 29 years old. Look, let's talk about his talent and why is he considered a once-in-a-generation athlete. There's not enough adjectives, or all the adjectives that you could give him are insufficient to how great of a player Shohei Ohtani is. Just look at his stats and try to compare him. Who does he compare to? That's right. You can't compare him to any player. It's impossible. He's such a great offensive player and a dominant defensive player as well. He's simply on track to be probably one of the greatest baseball players to ever grace the Diamonds, to be honest. If you want to compare some, maybe look at it like a Michael Jordan situation. One day, Michael Jordan said, you know what? I want to be good at 3-pointers. And in 1 year, Michael Jordan was really good at three-pointers. Shohei Ohtani has made himself. See, that's what separates good players from great players. Is like great players want to continue to get better. They see what they're lacking at, and they will focus all of their energy, all of their time in making themselves great at that specific thing that they were weak at. Even that thing that they're weak at could be great for other players, but to them, that was their weakest. So that is what Ohtani has done. All of the things that he was lacking from when he came into the league, I think 2013 is when his career had started. Half of that was overseas and here, and all that. He is simply. Here's the thing: he has had now 2 UCL surgeries. There's big question marks on how good his pitching is going to be. For those you don't know, UCL is a ligament that is in your arm. So we'll see how good he is pitching, because that's the other thing he was dominant at. Let's just look at his ERAs, his strikeout percentage. Strikeout percentage is 33%. 33%. The one thing that all these teams are probably going to clamor to get at him here in free agency is his hitting power still. If he lacks anything on the defensive thing, which is what a pitcher is, he can sure be worth the money offensively alone. He doesn't just have the hitting power. He has the hitting power to hit it wherever he wants. It's not just a specific, he can only hit it on the left side, the right side of the diamond. No, he has the hitting power to hit anywhere he wants. I mean, the only difference, if I'm going to keep it in the Michael Jordan frame here, is that Ohtani hasn't had the supporting cast. I mean, he's playing for the Angels, for goodness sake. If anything, it's on the Angels for failing him. They have the biggest paid contract and Mike Trout on the team. You have one of the biggest MLB stars, and you didn't. So if anything, the Angels failed him. No one else, not him. Angels failed him. Where do I think his next move is going to be? Well, I'll just throw out some teams. We'll start with the Dodgers. That's already a West Coast team. He's from Japan. I'm going to say that he's probably going to want to be as close to home as he possibly can. And the Dodgers are always in the mix to be contenders year in and year out. And they need a next DH, a next designated hitter. That's probably one thing maybe the Dodgers could be lacking, is that. So the Dodgers are probably the number one on a lot of people's list. Are they number one on Ohtani's list? That's the $1 million question here. Or in his case, probably $500 million question. Other teams, just like the Cubs, the Cubs have the money. The Cubs have the money to pay him whatever he wants. Does he want to go to Chicago? Cubs are a historic franchise, or at least they were. They have the money to get him. He has spoken openly that he doesn't really care for playing in Yankee Stadium or really in New York. But you have to throw the Mets out there. Why? Because their owner, Cohen, I can't think of his first name, but Cohen clearly has seamlessly endless pockets and just pays whoever. So if money can definitely turn a lot of displeasure into, make something doable. So if he doesn't want to play in Yankee Stadium, that's fine. The Mets play at their own stadium, but he's got to play in Yankee Stadium a lot. I think money can kind of put that into someone else's back of mind, And you have to think of the Mariners as well. The Mariners are a young, up-and-coming team. It's on the West Coast. It's up there in Seattle. They just barely missed the playoffs. I'd watch out for Seattle. Seattle. I don't think he's staying in with the Angels. And that's the other thing with the Dodgers. He wouldn't have to move. Just has to change jerseys, basically. So for me, I mean, you could throw the Rangers in there too. They do have money. the spin on the books too. They just proved that they could win because they just won the freaking World Series. So I'll just throw the Rangers in there too. I'm going to say he's going to go to Seattle. I'm going to say he's going to go to Seattle. He may go to the Dodgers because that's where majority of the commentators and analysts are saying he's going to go. I'm going to say Seattle. I'm going to say Seattle. Okay, guys. I wanted to wait a few weeks before diving into this, but you guys probably knew it was going to come sooner than later. And it's been the topic of the college sports world for the last almost month, maybe, since the news came out. And I wanted to wait for all the details, all the things to come out before I spoke about it. We're talking about the Michigan scandal. Okay, so let me break down the timeline of it real quick. On October 18th, the NCAA informs the Big Ten of its in-person scouting allegations, or has received information of in-season scouting allegations. The next day, October 19th, Yahoo Sports reported that the NCAA had reliable evidence of the university's football team, University of Michigan's football team, creating a substantial risk of compromising the integrity of football by sign stealing. Fast forward October 20th, Connor Stalions, a non-employed coach of the university, was suspended without pay. November 3rd, University of Michigan parts ways with Stallion. November 10th, Jim Harbaugh is suspended 3 games. November 11th, the judge sets a hearing while University of Michigan whoops up on Penn State that weekend. And then November 16th, the day before the judge had the set date for the hearing, Harbaugh is content. Harbaugh and the University of Michigan are content with serving the 3-game suspension. Well, my thoughts on all this malarkey. Well, first, I'll say, who doesn't sign steal? What university doesn't go out there and try to see? I get it. That's not actually in the rules. The rules state that you can't scout a team that is on your schedule for that year. If you're going to University of Connecticut for try to get a run up on their play calling and advanced scouting, you can do that if they're on the schedule for 2024, 2025. Can't do that if they're on the schedule for 2023. It was backed up by Central Michigan University saying that they have alleged video evidence of someone who looks like Connor Stalions dressed in Central Michigan gear while Central Michigan was playing Michigan State for their season opener. And this was because Michigan State is an opponent on Michigan's schedule this year, and then Michigan beat them later that inning 49-0. So that's just another log into the fire. Okay. Why do I have an issue with that? I don't have an issue, or I should say, I don't necessarily have a problem with the suspension. I kind of knew it was coming. Do I think it's Harbaugh's fault? Did I think he knew something about it? If I'm being honest, come on, you're the head of the snake. Telling me you didn't know a single thing about it? I'm not saying he's right about it, and I'm not saying it's also wrong to do it either, because everybody does it. Everybody's looking for that advantage. Every single university is looking for an advantage. You don't think Nick Saban in Alabama have sent people to just about every school that they beat 45-7? Come on. Big part of it is we've got high recruits and you don't. Sure. But there's a little bit of how much of an advantage can I get over you? How much of an advantage can I get? They got caught. But I don't think there's something called due process. And that's the Big Ten not allowing there to be proper due process before they came down with their official ruling of suspension Harbaugh of 3 games. I thought that they were going to let this season play out. I'm not saying the investigation would have been over, but any rulings would have waited till after this season had passed. Michigan is one of your big horses, if not the biggest horse in the Big Ten. You've got a chance at having at least a team in the CFP and potentially win it. You're going to compromise that. I'm not saying that winning is the end all be all. I'm not saying that winning should trump everything else, because wrong is wrong. I agree with that. But I had just figured that any ruling, any suspension, any fines, any scholarship withholding, any wins vacated would happen at the end of this year, after this season is over. I think it's very brave of Harbaugh and the university to go ahead and agree with the university's suspending of 3 games instead of dragging it out. I think they would have had a case to lessen the suspension, but they decided to just serve the suspension through. So I don't think this is the end of it, even though Michigan agreed to serve the suspension and thus putting a lot of it to bed. I don't think it's the last of it. I think there's a lot more to be said and a lot more to be revealed, not just against Michigan here, but a lot of other universities as well. Are you just sad because Michigan is competing well, that they're doing good, and they're not doing better? Come on now. It's ridiculous. To keep it in the college terms here, something I'm absolutely looking forward to, but I have to wait a year. The 12-team CFP format. It is expanding from 4 teams, which it is at currently, to 12 teams. And I wish it was this year. Why? Bo Nix at Oregon, Michael Penix at Washington, J.J. McCarthy at Michigan. I am completely going blank now. Jordan Travis of Florida State, although his recent injury is very, very sad, and it was very, very gross. I watched it like 4 times, but it was very, very gross. Drake May, North Carolina. Caleb Williams, USC. You have Riley Leonard at Duke. There's so many senior and upperclassmen quarterbacks, and their teams are doing well. Well, not USC anymore. They've kind of shut the bag. Oh, and Sam Hartman at Notre Dame. Let me throw in another one. And I'm probably missing at least 2 to 3 other really good upperclassmen quarterbacks with really good teams that we're not going to see because they're going to be gone next year. And this year, we still have the 4-team format. I wish it was this year. There's so many good teams this year and so many senior upperclassmen quarterbacks, too, that they're all could have been competing against at a high level. It could very well be like, if it was this year, let's just say the 12-team thing lasts for 5-6 years. Year 1 could have been the greatest of those 5-6 years because of all the different quarterbacks that I just mentioned. And let's not forget Oklahoma's Dylan Gabriel, upperclassman. Quinn Ewers at Texas isn't quite an upperclassman, but he's been in college for like 3 years. All these quarterbacks are probably going to be gone next year. And who do we have for next year's for the 12th team? I mean, we know Ohio State has a young quarterback. Penn State has a young quarterback. Alabama has a young quarterback. Clemson has a young quarterback. Stop me if you think I'm repeating myself for a lot of the same teams that are always in the CFP. All of these teams are probably going to be in the running next year. But who else can you really say to fill out that 12 team? You're going to have a lot of new faces next year. Does Colorado improve that much to make the top 12? Maybe. Maybe. I know Carson Rising is coming back to Utah, so Utah has a pretty good shot. And Carson Rising has another guy who's been there a while. I really can't think of any other quarterbacks. I really can't. Unless Quinn Ewers decides to come back, okay? Throw Texas in there again. I just think that I thought the 12-team format was a little bit overblown too. I would have liked to see an 8-team one. And the only good thing about the 12-team format is if you lose a game, there's not that much pressure. If you lose a game, you're not automatically out. If you lose a game, you are still very much in it. It's the top 12 teams. And if you're a Power 5 school like Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, USC, UCLA, Oregon, Alabama, Auburn, LSU, Florida State, Clemson, Boston College. I'm just joking, not Boston College. They are a Power 5 school, but they're not going to be anything. If you're a Power 5 school and you're all of those teams that just listed, that's probably what 8 or 9 I just listed. There's still 3 more slots. You could very easily have, out of the 3 big conferences, the Big Ten, the SEC, and the Pac-12, at least the Pac-12 this year, if it was a 12-team format, you could easily have 3 teams from each of those in there. That's 9, and just figure out the rest of the 3 from the Big 12, which could be Oklahoma and Texas. And then, I don't know, missing one. I don't even know the missing one. How about we just throw Notre Dame in there? Mr. Independent. I just think this was the year to have the 12-team format. If there was any year to have it, this was the year. This was the year. Not saying that it may not be exciting next year, but this was absolutely the year to have it. The Pac-12 isn't going to be same next year either when they lose USC and UCLA. Oh, and guess what? Washington and Oregon are coming over too. I think that's just absolutely ridiculous. What's the Big Ten doing? This is strictly a money grab. What if you're a student? I don't think the athletic directors or the presidents of those universities thought of the student. If you're a student at the University of Oregon and you got to go play Maryland, you got to go across the country to do so during the weekday, during the weekend, probably like a 6-7 hour flight. And I'm probably not doing that justice. Probably got to do it during November, December. What about finals? What about tests? And it's not just about football and basketball. That includes all sports. Golf, soccer, tennis, basketball. I already said basketball. But you get where I'm getting at here. I'm not saying that you can't add or move out of conferences. The conferences are aligned for the universities that are geographically in the area. Please tell me how USC is close to Penn State. I mean, good gosh. Unless they figure the schedule is going to be, okay, if USC is going out to play Maryland, might as well go play Rutgers. Might as well just stay out there. But you're asking college students to go to Maryland for a game and then either stay there or travel over to College Park where Rutgers is at for a week. That's kind of rough. In practice for an upcoming game, I mean, I don't know how the schedule may work out, but in my head, that would be the smartest thing to do. At least get rid of the East-West lines. There's no freaking way in football that Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan are all on the same east side. We're the 4 best teams. Well, I'm going to throw Michigan State out there. They're kind of washed. Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan. They should just do it like the Big 12 format. Top 2 overall teams. That's how it should always have been. If they're ever going to redo the lines, fine. Kick Michigan State out and bring over Northwestern, or maybe send IU and Michigan State over and give us Illinois and Northwestern. Something like that. Something to even it out. Anyway, so those are my thoughts overall on episode 3. So look out for episode 4, which I'm looking to drop later this week. If you aren't able to see episode 4, happy holidays, and I look forward to seeing you guys then. Take care.